What would you do if the life you agreed to live disappeared the moment you arrived? Ruby Thorne never imagined she'd face that question before she even stepped off the wooden wagon at her new home in the Wyoming Territory. The morning she left Connecticut felt like a lifetime ago. Her mother had packed her trunk tightly with dresses, keepsakes, and the last pieces of the life Ruby had known. She was being sent west to marry Walter Davies, a man she had never met, a man she only knew through kind, formal letters that promised stability and a fresh start. It wasn't love, but it was survival, and for her family, that would have to be enough. Now, after a long, dusty train ride across the country, Ruby stood in the yard of Davies Ranch with her heart pounding. The two-story White House looked strong and proud beneath the big Wyoming sky. For a moment, she allowed herself to feel relief. Maybe she could make this life work. But the man waiting for her on the porch was not Walter Davies. He was younger, broader in the shoulders, dark-haired, sun-tanned, and carrying himself like someone who had seen danger before. When he stepped forward, she noticed he walked with a limp, his jaw tight with a pain he was trying to hide. "Miss Thorne," he said, taking off his hat. "I'm Owen Morgan. Welcome to Davies Ranch." Ruby blinked. I think there must be some mistake. I was expecting Mr. Walter Davies." Owen's expression softened with something like sorrow. "There's no mistake. Mr. Davies passed away 3 days ago. The wound in his leg got infected. Doc Miller did all he could." The words hit Ruby like a blow. Her planned future, her sacrifice, her long journey, gone in a single moment. "Passed away?" she whispered. "But I came here to marry him." "I know," Owen said quietly. "I was with him at the end. He was a good man. He wanted you taken care of. He changed his will when he sent for you. The house, the ranch, they're yours now." Ruby stumbled as she stepped down from the wagon, gripping the wooden side. "But we weren't married. None of this makes sense." Quote. Owen reached out to steady her, his hand warm and strong around her arm. "I wish I had better news for you. But you're safe here. You have time to think. You won't be turned out." She nodded, though her mind was spinning. Safe. Time to think. How was she supposed to think when everything she had planned had vanished? Billy, the boy who'd brought her from town, began unloading her trunk. Ruby watched it hit the wagon bed with a heavy thud. The same trunk her mother had packed with trembling hands. The trunk meant to start a marriage that now would never happen. She couldn't let herself cry. "Not here. Not yet. Let me show you inside," Owen said. He held the door open for her, and Ruby stepped into the house that had been meant to become her home. The main room was warm with a stone fireplace, sturdy wooden furniture, and rows of books that surprised her. Someone had tried to make it feel welcoming. Fresh flowers sat in a jar. A quilt lay folded on the sofa. Walter Davies had prepared for a bride. Her throat tightened. "Your room is upstairs," Owen said gently. Walter had it made ready. "Where do you stay?" Ruby asked, grateful for any distraction. "I've got quarters above the stable." "I won't be underfoot." His tone was respectful, careful. "You'll have privacy." She nodded, though nothing about this situation felt steady or private or right. After Billy carried up her trunk and left, Ruby finally let herself sink onto the edge of the bed. Her chest tightened with grief she didn't quite understand. Grief for a life she thought she'd have. Grief for a man she'd never met but had promised herself to. Grief for everything uncertain ahead. She didn't know how long she sat there before she stood, washed her face, and forced herself downstairs. A bowl of stew waited on the stove, still warm. She ate only a few bites before stepping out onto the porch, needing air. The sun had dipped low, turning the sky rich orange. Cowboys moved across the yard, finishing their work. Somewhere far off, a coyote called. The land stretched endlessly, beautiful, lonely, intimidating. Footsteps approached. Owen's boots thudded softly against the porch boards before he handed her a mug of hot coffee. "You doing all right?" he asked. Ruby wrapped her hands around the warm mug, grateful for it. "I don't know how to answer that." "That's fair," Owen said. "It's a lot to take in." She looked at him, the quiet steadiness in his eyes, the way he didn't push for answers she didn't have. "What would you do," she asked softly, "if the life you expected vanished in a moment?" Owen looked out across the darkening land. I reckon I'd take a breath, stand my ground, and decide what kind of life I want instead. Ruby let his words sink in as the night grew colder. You're not alone here, Miss Thorne, Owen added in a low voice. I gave Walter my word I'd look after you until everything was settled. I intend to keep that promise. For the first time since she arrived, Ruby felt something besides fear, a small, fragile spark of steadiness. Maybe she really wasn't alone. But she had no idea yet just how much Owen Morgan would change her life. What if the first person to believe you belonged in a new life wasn't the one you came west to marry at all? The next morning, Ruby woke early, drawn from sleep by the sound of hooves outside the window. The ranch was already awake, men moving between the stables and corrals, their breath turning to white mist in the cold air. She pulled on a plain dress, braided her hair, and made her way downstairs. Mrs. Abernathy, a warm, cheerful woman with bright eyes, bustled around the kitchen. There you are, dear, she said. I'm Ida Abernathy. I help out here. Mr. Davies arranged it months ago, bless him. Sit. You need a good breakfast if you're to survive Wyoming. Ruby managed to smile and sat as Ida placed a plate of eggs, biscuits, and crisp bacon before her. The scent alone eased some of her tension. Mr. Morgan's already out working, Ida said. He's a fine man. Quiet, but steady. He and Mr. Davies were like brothers. Ruby hesitated. Did he take Mr. Davies' death hard? Ida's expression softened. He did. They built this place together, in a way. Losing Walter hurt him more than he'll say. Ruby lowered her gaze. Somehow, that made everything feel heavier. After breakfast, Ruby decided she could not hide inside the house forever. She stepped outside and walked toward the barn. She wanted to understand the ranch, the place that was now hers. She paused when she saw Owen standing with a group of ranch hands, pointing toward the northern pasture. Johnson, take 2 men and ride the fence line, he said. And Patterson, work that young mare again today. She's close to ready. The men set off. Owen turned, and his eyes found Ruby immediately. Good morning, Miss Thorne, he said, touching the brim of his hat. Hope you slept well. As well as anyone can in a strange place, she replied honestly. I can show you around, he offered. If you'd like. Please. He nodded and walked beside her as the cold morning air wrapped around them. Owen explained the buildings, the land, the cattle herds, the water rights, all in simple words she could understand. Ruby listened carefully, asking questions when something confused her. You're learning fast, Owen said. Ruby glanced at him. I feel overwhelmed. I don't know anything about running a ranch. You don't have to know everything today, he said. You just have to care. That's more than half the work. She didn't know why those words warmed her so deeply. When they reached the far fence, Ruby paused to take in the sweeping land. Snow dusted the mountains like white paint. The ranch stretched farther than she could imagine. The air was so crisp it almost hurt to breathe. It's beautiful, she whispered. It is, Owen said quietly. That's why Walter loved it and why I stayed. Why did you stay? Ruby asked. You could have gone anywhere. Owen hesitated. Because this land feels like home, and because Walter believed in me when no one else did. Ruby understood that, deeply. They returned to the house as clouds began gathering over the mountains. Storm coming, Owen murmured. Winter's early this year. Quote, Inside, Ruby settled at the desk. Walter had kept so neatly organized. The ranch ledgers intimidated her, but she knew she had to try. She spent hours studying numbers, contracts, and notes Walter had written in tidy columns. By afternoon, Owen returned, brushing snow from his coat. You've been busy, he said with a smile. I'm trying, Ruby admitted. I don't want the men to see me as someone who doesn't belong here. They already respect you, Owen said. You stepped into a hard situation and didn't fall apart. That counts. Ruby felt her cheeks warm. Then Owen set a stack of papers on the desk. Cattle buyers are coming to Cheyenne in a month, he explained. Walter always went. This year, you'll need to go. Me? Ruby stared. I don't know anything about negotiating. I'll prepare you, Owen promised. You won't go alone. His confidence steadied her, and then he said something that made her breath catch. When we get there, Miss Thorne, let me earn your yes instead. Ruby blinked. My yes? Owen met her gaze with calm honesty. You came here prepared to build a life with a good man. I know I'm not him. But you deserve the choice Walter never got to give you. Let me earn my place beside you. Not because of duty, not because of a promise, but because you truly want it. Her heart fluttered in a way she hadn't expected. Owen, I'm not ready, she whispered. I'm not asking for an answer now, he said gently. Only the chance to show you who I am. Her pulse beat hard beneath her ribs. He was giving her a choice she never expected to have. Before she could respond, snow began falling outside. Light, but steady. We'll need to prepare for the trip to Cheyenne, Owen said. It'll be a rough journey. Ruby stood from the desk. I'll be ready. He gave her a soft smile, a smile that made her feel seen in a way she had never felt before. As the evening settled, Ruby stood at the window, watching the ranch grow quiet. Snow drifted down in slow white flakes. Lamps glowed warm against the gathering night. Owen passed by the window on his way to the stables, his silhouette tall and steady. Reliable, strong, kind. Ruby touched the cold glass lightly. She had come west expecting duty, not choice. But tonight, for the first time, she wondered what her life might look like if she let herself hope. What if the man you were never meant to love became the only one your heart trusted? The morning of their journey to Cheyenne arrived bitter cold. Ruby dressed in layers, pulled on the heavy wool coat Mrs. Abernathy insisted she take, and stepped outside where Owen waited with 2 saddled horses and a pack mule. You ready? He asked. As ready as anyone can be, Ruby said, though nerves fluttered in her stomach. Good, Owen replied. Stay close to me on the trail. They set off, just as the sun crested the hills, painting the snow pink and gold. The land stretched wide and quiet, the kind of quiet that made Ruby understand why some people never left the West once they arrived. The first day was hard. Ruby wasn't used to hours in a saddle, but she didn't complain. By evening, her legs ached so badly she had to hide a wince each time she dismounted. You held up well, Owen said, helping her down. I'm stiff, not helpless, Ruby replied. Owen chuckled. That you are. They stayed the night in a line shack, a small one-room cabin with 2 narrow cots, a fireplace, and barely enough room for the both of them to move around. Owen built the fire while Ruby watched, shivering as the warmth grew. You look frozen, he murmured. Get close. Ruby stepped toward the fire, rubbing her hands together. I'm beginning to understand why people say the West is unforgiving. It is, Owen said, settling beside her, but it's honest. Everything out here shows its true nature, weather, land, people. Ruby glanced at him. And what is your true nature, Owen Morgan? He hesitated before answering. A man who keeps his word, a man who tries to do right, and, he looked into the fire, a man who wants to earn your trust, and maybe more. Her breath caught, but she said nothing. Not yet. The second day was easier. The land changed around them as they traveled. Rolling plains, icy creeks, distant mountains, dusted white. By the afternoon of the 4th day, Cheyenne appeared on the horizon, smoke rising from chimneys, the sound of wagons echoing on the wind. We made it, Ruby said with relief. You did well, Owen told her. Better than most. At the hotel, Ruby took the longest bath of her life, letting the hot water wash away days of dust and cold. Afterward, she dressed in her best altered blue dress and met Owen downstairs for dinner. He stared for a moment when he saw her. You look, he cleared his throat. You look beautiful, Miss Thorne. Her cheeks warmed. Thank you. The next day, Ruby faced the cattle buyers, sharp-tongued, experienced businessmen who expected to intimidate her. But she remembered everything Owen taught her. She spoke with calm confidence, countered low offers, questioned unfair points, and held her ground. When the contracts were finally signed, Owen leaned close and whispered, "You were brilliant." Ruby's heart thrummed with pride, but as they walked outside, Owen stopped suddenly. "Ruby," he said in a low voice, "I meant what I said back at the ranch, about wanting to earn your yes." She turned to face him. "You've done more than that already." He stared at her, snowflakes collecting on his hair. "Does that mean—" "I'm not ready to promise anything yet," she said gently, "but I want to see what grows between us. I want to understand what this could be." Relief washed over him. "Then that's enough for me." Their journey home started under clear skies but shifted quickly. A sudden storm swept across the plains, winds howling and snow whipping sideways. Owen pushed their horses hard, guiding Ruby with calm, practiced motions. At last, they reached another line shack, just in time. The storm raged through the night, shaking the walls. Ruby sat shivering near the fire, wrapped in a blanket. "Come here," Owen said softly. "You're too cold." She hesitated, but stepped closer. He wrapped his coat around her shoulders and drew her close, his arm warm around her back. "You're safe," he whispered. She rested her head against his shoulder, listening to the strong, steady beat of his heart. Something inside her settled for the first time since she left home. When the storm finally stopped, the world outside was buried in snow. They pushed on, making slow progress until at last, the ranch came into view. "Home," Ruby whispered. Owen looked over at her with soft eyes. "Home," he agreed. Mrs. Abernathy greeted Ruby with a warm hug. The ranch hands gathered to welcome them back. For the first time, Ruby felt the weight of belonging. That night, exhausted but full of quiet joy, Ruby sat at her kitchen table when Owen entered the room. He didn't speak at first. He simply held her gaze with a question in his eyes. Ruby stood and walked toward him. "Thank you," she said softly, "for keeping me safe, for believing I belong here." "You do belong here," Owen said firmly, "and not because of a will or a ranch, but because of who you are." She swallowed hard. "Owen, what if I want this? What if I want you?" His breath hitched. "Then tell me." She took a step closer. "I want you to stay by my side, as my partner, as the man I choose." Quote. Owen took her hands in his calloused ones. "Ruby Thorne, say the word, and I'll spend my life earning your yes." She smiled, a smile that reached deep into her heart. "Yes," she whispered. "This is my yes." Owen kissed her, slow, warm, full of everything they had survived together, a kiss that marked the beginning of something real. The ranch had lost one man, but it had gained a new beginning. And Ruby Thorne had gained the love of the man who was never meant to be hers, yet somehow was the one she had been meant to find all along.